Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all fighting fit and well. Well, today, this is part 2 of the Lawson Waterfall walk, and I've come down to a different waterfall now. This is called Junction Falls, and I'll turn the camera around in a moment so you can see what I'm looking at and what I endeavour to photograph. Now, this waterfall's a bit different compared to Adelina Falls, which I photographed a few days ago, just before it snowed here actually. And this is more a tighter composition, and I should get some really nice images here. I'll go through what I'll be doing and how to capture them. I won't get many here today, but I'll endeavour to capture some really decent images. Basically, and the theme for this video will be coming back to locations that you've already photographed, and I'll speak to you about that a bit later on. But I'll just turn the camera around and I'll show you exactly what I'm facing here. As you can see in the video a bit earlier on, I had to bush bash my way to get to this location, and I have to say, once again, I know I'm biased, I know I live here, but this is just absolutely magnificent country, and it was snowing here 3 days ago. Now the snow has melted, resulting in a lot of water coming through the falls here. But, you know, I mean, I was doing a commercial job, so I couldn't come out here and photograph with the snow, so unfortunately. But it will snow again here. The track coming into here is very muddy because of the snow has melted, and it's just all muddy and sloshy. So if you're in Sydney and you want to come here, I suggest don't wear your $200 pair of Nike sand shoes or your runners, because they will be destroyed, I can tell you. Get yourself a good pair of gumboots, or I've been using these Bogs waterproof, 100% waterproof hunting boots, and as you can see in the video, they're working a treat. So I'll set the camera up and I'll go through my settings, and we'll talk a little bit about revisiting locations. Okay, I've set up for the first composition here, and it's just a straight on shot, but I'm shooting fairly wide at 17mm on full frame. So that gives me a great amount of scope to capture all the walls or the bush that's forming this tiered waterfall. So basically my settings for this one is I'm wanting a fairly fast sort of shutter speed. I don't want to blow the water out, because that is the highlight of any waterfall. So I'm currently at f11 and 1 second. That's the exposure. Now, with these modern day cameras, don't be afraid to bump up your ISO. I'm at 640 ISO here, only because I've got this tree canopy above the waterfall, plus I'm trying to grab that 1 second exposure. If I had it on 100 ISO, because sometimes even I shoot at 50, the shutter speed is just too slow, the exposure is too long, and you just end up blowing out the highlights, and then you've got a major issue, and you really can't recover that. So basically I'm at f11, and I might even adjust that to f8 later on, because the depth of field here doesn't have to be all that great. So just over 1 second exposure. We'll take that shot, 2 second timer. I'm also using the Nissi Landscape Circular Polarizer just to get the sheen off the rocks here. I'll put these images at the end of the video, of course, but other than that, that's not a bad shot. So I'll turn this camera around and I'll explain to you exactly what I'm looking at. Okay, that's the image there that I'm facing. Now, a couple of problems here. Well, there's actually only one problem really, and that is to the top right hand side up here. There's this broken tree branch that's sticking out and coming across the top tier of the waterfall. Now, I could probably clone that out, which I think I will, because it's just that in that line of sight that I'm not really happy with. Once again, I'm still shooting at 1 second exposure, f11. I might try and change that down to probably f10 or f8, just for something a little bit different. But that's the scene that I'm currently trying to photograph. And I'll take a few more, and then I'll come back to you and talk to you about why you should revisit landscape locations. Okay, I've actually raised the camera up a little bit just for a different perspective, but unfortunately there's a bit of a breeze now, so what's happening is that I'm getting blurs from either side of the waterfall. And so what I've got to do here is quite simply exposure blend. So what I've done, I've taken 2 images, one after another. The first image I took of the ferns either side of the waterfall, because they're moving. I took them at a higher shutter speed because I needed to freeze the motion of all these beautiful green ferns around the actual waterfall. And then I took another exposure of the waterfall separately at a different shutter speed, well, the normal shutter speed of 1 second. So basically what I have to do then is just blend those 2 images together in Photoshop, in post-edit, and fingers crossed, we'll come up with a rather nice image. But it's been a pretty good morning here. I've taken a few good shots. As I said, this is a very tight composition here. There isn't much room to move. I'm actually standing on these rocks here that are very, very slippery, and it's giving the bogs waterproof boots a good workout. And I thank God I've got them on, because the actual video camera there that I'm talking into is actually in the water. And as you can see, I'm on this rock ledge here, which is very, very slippery. But taking a few more shots, exposure blend. No need to focus stack here because I'm very close to the waterfall. I'm not all that far away, shooting at 17 to 20 millimeter on full frame. But other than that, it has been a pretty good morning. Not as cold as last week. Last week was very, very cold, and then we backed onto the snow that was falling here. But other than that, it's a really nice place to be. And as I always say, if you're in Sydney and you want to come up here for a day, you've got to come up and have a look at this part of the Blue Mountains. It's absolutely beautiful. You know, it is cool. It's around about 4 degrees, but just the excitement of being here warms you up, actually. But I'll take a few more shots, and then I'll speak to you about revisiting locations within your landscape photography. Okay, I've changed positions for the final time this morning here, and this is real intimate sort of landscape photography, actually a waterfall photography. I'm about probably, I don't know, 3 and a bit meters away from the actual waterfall itself. Now in front of me here, or over here, I've got these ferns, and they're slightly moving in the breeze. So what I have to do now is I'll focus on the ferns, and I'll take a shot of the ferns at a fairly high shutter speed, probably 1/125th of a second. Naturally, I'd have to make a few modifications inside the camera, but then I will focus on the waterfall itself and photograph that at 1 second, and then I'll combine them together in Photoshop as to one image. That way I'm getting everything sharp. Now, I could possibly shoot this at f/16 and hope for the best, which I will do, and then I'll take the 2 separate images with exposure blending, where first shot is the ferns, second shot is the waterfall at a different shutter speed, keeping in mind I don't want to blow out that water, and then we combine them and see what sort of image we got at the end of it. It should work, I hope, but you'll see it at the end of this video. So I'll take this shot and see what we come up with. So basically, I'm focusing on the ferns. I'm at f/5.6, and it's 1/100th of a second. That in theory should freeze the motion and just slight movement of the ferns. So we take that shot, and then I'll focus on the water, the actual waterfall, reduce everything, get the shutter speed down to about 1 second, take that shot, then I'll combine them and see what we come up with. Always look through the back of the live view with the Hoodman loop. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. We'll take that one. 2-second timer. And that's not too bad. We'll have a look at it. That's okay. Bit of a hot spot in the water there, but I can change that a bit in post. But also too, don't forget, as I said earlier, don't forget to raise your, don't be frightened to raise your ISO in darker areas like this. So we'll wrap this up. I'll go back over there where the gear is and I'll finish off this video and talk to you about why we should consider revisiting landscape locations you've been to before. Well, that comes to the end of part 2 of the project I'm doing here at South Lawson Waterfall Walk. Behind me here is Junction Falls, and that's what you'll see at the end of this video with the images and a bit of the B-roll before and after and during. But it really is a spectacular place, and there are it's not on the tourist map, this location. The only people that walk through the top of the tracks here are locals or people that know about it, or people telling people about it to come up here and have a look. And that's what I suggest. If you're in Sydney, you've got to come up here and have a look at this. This is just absolutely beautiful. And yes, I know I'm biased because I live in the area. However, it is something else. And you'll see that in the images that you'll see the images at the end of this video. But what I really want to finish off with you today is people often say, oh, why do you go and photograph locations that you've already photographed before? Well, quite frankly, the landscape changes. This is a living organism here. It changes on a daily basis. The light changes. We have massive floods here not that long ago, and all the sand has come down cascade over the waterfall, so that's changing. Everything's changing. So I was here 2 years ago, and what I just photographed then is completely different to what I photographed 2 years ago. So there's nothing wrong with coming back to a location that you've already photographed, because the landscape changes, whether that's seascape, landscape, or any type of photography for that matter, because around here we've got new growth, we've got old growth, we've had trees come down, new ones are growing, everything's changing, so your compositions will be completely different as to what you took previously. But this is a living beast, and it's just, you know, you cannot stop photographing these locations. But please don't think just because you've been to a location that you can't come back and photograph it again, because that stifles your growth as a photographer, quite frankly. And when I hear people say, oh, it's no use, I've been to that location, I don't need to photograph it again, that's telling me they really haven't studied their subject. You need to study your subject, you need to know about it. Pre-planning, setting goals, it all comes back to getting to know your subject. I know this area like the back of my hand, but it's constantly changing. So what I knew from 2 years ago compared to what I know now and what I've just photographed is completely different. Completely different. So don't let that stop you from going back into locations and photographing those locations that you previously did photograph, because you just don't grow as a photographer. So that's it. That's part 2 done and dusted here at South Lawson Waterfall Walk. That'll go up in the next couple of days. I've got one more video to do here, and there's a waterfall further down which is unnamed. Now I know exactly where it is, and I know what I have to do to get to it, and it is going to be a challenge actually, but no one else seems to want to go down there, and I know why, but I think the images I get, well, probably not many people would see those type of images getting into that location just over there. So, but that's it. That's another episode of Sniper Photography. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and the bell next door so you don't miss anything. Basically, thank you for your support. It's much appreciated. We do put a lot of work into these videos, and I hope you get something out of it. Any questions or anything like that, please put them down below. But that's it. That's it for another episode of Sniper Photography. And as I always say, be nice to yourself, family and friends, but most of all, you keep shooting and keep smiling. Bye for now.